The environmental community in Buffalo is buzzing about one of the projects Grassroots Gardens is taking part in. A local effort focused on bringing positive change to Buffalo, one that is demonstrating the transformative potential of holding spaces where people can share in their humanity together, where they can be vulnerable and real and learn what it's like to feel good about co stewardship of place.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this community advisory group? Because it's really quite innovative and there's a lot of excitement around that, and Grassroots Gardens is
Yeah.
supporting that initiative.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about the work that we're doing with the community advisory group, right, is that we're going to be sort of baking watershed education into a lot of our outreach efforts throughout the year, or I believe this grant covers a number of years. We actually have quite a few gardens that are within this Scajaquada subshed or subwatershed that ultimately drains into the Niagara River. And it was great. I was able to use my GIS background to sort of calculate how much square footage our green spaces assist with the slowing down of water as it moves across the landscape. And it's significant. I want to say it was almost like 5 square miles within the city itself. So, I mean, that is no small amount. We just recently had our community advisory group meeting, and I appreciate how intentional the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeepers was about outreach to communities. We had an astounding amount of applicants that wanted to join the community advisory group, and that's the other thing too that I really appreciate was that the funding that they were able to secure is actually paying people to provide their feedback in this advisory group. So we're not asking folks to volunteer their time freely. It's like you're being compensated for this, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I do hope that the funding landscape creates opportunities for that to continue to happen, because that's a good way to build trust. What I really appreciated from that first community advisory group meeting was Terry Robinson, who he's also on the board of the Pollinator Conservation Association. He's been in Buffalo his whole life. He's had a presence of like 30, 40 plus years. He said to me, he was like, this feels different. This feels significant, that maybe something might actually change. And for him to feel that hopeful in that moment, I was like, okay, I respect your wisdom, appreciate his hype.
I wonder if we could like kind of dig into that a little bit. Do you have like a sense of what was making him hopeful, what was making him feel like this moment might be different?
Honestly, I think it was the way that the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeepers, how they were navigating the conversation,
Mm.
right? Like they really were asking about genuine feedback. They held space for us to feel raw and authentic emotion, right?
Yeah.
Because like the theme I got when we were kind of reflecting on, like, they had provided drone footage of the course of the Scajaquada Creek, so they were able to be like, this is what it looks like from this high up. Many of the community members understandably had this sense of loss and grief, that they were experiencing centered around the creek. I appreciated that they were holding space for all of us to experience those emotions and to help us kind of process the grief a little bit. I mean, that's hard to do in one setting. The nice thing about this group is that, it'll meet over the next couple of years. And I do hope that we're able to sort of continue this emotional journey together, that it's not just talking about the science of ecological restoration, but sort of reclaiming ownership of that shared resource of the
Mhm.
Scajaquada Creek, and I appreciated that they were like, we want to hear your thoughts on what ecological restoration would look like. And they even went as far as to say, like, maybe ecological restoration doesn't necessarily mean like daylighting sections of the creek that are buried, but that it could mean paying homage to the creek, right? Like maybe there's an art installation that illustrates the flow of the creek underground,
Mm.
right? Like it might not be possible to daylight parts of the creek, and they really emphasize that if the community doesn't want that, then that's not going to happen. That I really appreciated. because I'm like, that's what I want for ecological restoration as Buffalo, is I want it to be community led and community motivated.